Hello and welcome everyone. So the topic today is a very interesting one, and it will appeal to most of you who would like to go for an interview for a senior developer position next, for whatever reason, for a career change or a company change or for looking for a better role. So that's how the titles came into being. So do you like to succeed in your next C# senior developer interview? Now this interview questions, I've been discussing 5 questions throughout this entire tutorial or lecture. And if you go through the entire video, you will find that I have written the solutions to each and every of the questions posed. And the questions were created by ChatGPT. So that's why I have given the solution name, included the word ChatGPT to suggest that there is slight involvement of ChatGPT in this. So hopefully this will prove to be of some value to all of you. And if you like this tutorial, please do subscribe to the channel, put your valuable comments, and share it with friends. So let's go over to Visual Studio without mucking around any further. Thank you. New project. So file, new project. So I give the project a name, C# interview, ChatGPT, and I've created a location and solution name. Automatically takes the project's name. And let me click place solution and project in the same directory, or rather I will keep it unchecked and then click on next. Then .NET 7 standard term support, the latest one that we are using. Do not use top level statements. Okay, and then click on create. It will create the project. It has now created the solution with this one project with the same name, C# interview ChatGPT, but I will change the name to the question that we'll be answering. Okay, so for now, if you run this project, it will come up with a hello world on a console, as you are all familiar with. Now, what I plan to do here is that, the C# interview ChatGPT, the project that is created by default, which has automatically taken the name of the solution, I will rename this to reflect the name of the type of C# question that has been posed, and it will be answered. So I will rename it generic swap demo. Now, at this point, it is a good time to tell you that, I'll be fast forwarding the code that I'll be writing line by line, just so that I don't take a huge lot of your time. But I'll have to stop my discussion at that time, and I will explain once I have completed the coding part, and I will explain it in detail. All right. So I've written the code. Now I'm running the application. So now the output is swapped. A becomes 10 and B becomes 5. Okay. So what has happened here is that, this is generic swap method, that it has got a static method. This class, I've created a new class, internal class swapper. So internal is fine. You can make it public, but internal is visible to the project, and we are restricting ourselves amongst only the one project. So in the static void swap of generic type T, it is taking two references. T could be any generic type, and it could be integer, bool, or anything. So one variable is A and another variable is B. And this swap method takes these two parameters and swaps their values. To implement the swap, the method uses a temporary variable of type T to store its value in one of the variables and sets the value of the first variable to the value of the second variable, and that is the logic which sets the value of the second variable to the value of the temporary variable. This way it can swap. And what I am doing in the program class is initializing two variables of int type A5 and B is 10, and then to the swapper class. Okay. Now this static, this internal class swapper, which could be even public, or even it could be called with the static, keyword. So either of these three will be all right, but it has got a static method, static swap method, that is allowing the program class to call without instantiating the swapper class, because it has got a swap method, which is static method. Okay. So swapper.swap you can call straight away without initializing an instance of swapper class, and pass on the reference A and B variable as reference, and then on the console.writeLine command, you'll get the values swapped. So hope this is understood. Now the second C# question that was posed, and that was actually provided by the ChatGPT-4 with an answer, is about a LINQ query example. So let's create another console project on this solution. So right click, add new project, console app, click on next, and I'll give it a name, LINQ query example, straight away. So we see that our LINQ query example, another console, C# console application, is already in place, and I've got this program class. Let's open this up, and it's again console.writeLine. So here, this one is a shorter C# question. Now this is actually, it will show you a list of numbers which will be filtered with a lambda expression, with a LINQ query rather, and in a for each loop we'll get all the items one by one. So here we go. list. Now, before I run this program, I'll have to set it as a startup project. Now that I have got more than one project, so if I don't make it as a startup project, then it will execute this one, generic swap demo, which we have already seen. Okay. So now I can able to run it by start without debugging, Control plus F5, or even this button. Okay. So this is actually helping in debugging, but I don't need it to debug. So I will hit this button, green arrow, hollow arrow, or control plus F5, and it gives me the answer 135, which is expected. So this is another practical question that you might encounter in a C# interview, is how to create a LINQ query to filter a list of integers based on a condition. Okay, so here I have used the where extension method of the enumerable class. So you can see IEnumerable of integer, and the where method takes a lambda expression. This is the lambda expression. This is the lambda expression that represents the condition to filter on. And here this condition is n percentage 2. That means n remainder division by 2 is not equal to 0. If it is equal to 0, then that means there is no remainder, and then it is a even number. But if the remainder is not 0, it is 1 or any other number, then it is an odd number. In this case, it will be 1. N percentage 2 will be equal to 1, but it is not, anyway not equal to 0. So it will contain only the elements that satisfy the condition, and which is a odd. So the output confirms that the filter list contains only the odd numbers, as I have shown you, 135. Now the third C# question that I'm going to take is about creating a singleton instance of a class. And I will be showing a logger class example as a practical example. So let's create another C# console application. So add new project. Now here I would first create a logger class, add it to the Singleton demo project that has been made. So add now this class, this will be a sealed class so that no other class can derive from this class. This will be sealed. So I will start coding. Okay, and I will come back with the explanation after I have completed this part of the C# coding. This for the singleton instance, because I'll call this logger class once it is created. I'll call this class from another class, say my class, and then with the program, with the main entry point, I'll be calling logger with the log instance. Okay, so here it starts the game. Now I will create another class and let us give it a name. Any name you can give, but I will give it a name. Say add class. I'll give it a name, my class. And that's all. Okay, let us make this a startup project. Like earlier, when you want to run this class or this example, this project, set a startup project and click on this, Control F5. So it gives me the expected result doing something in my class. So let's close this window and let's explain. Now, the question is, how would you create a singleton instance with a logger class in C#? The singleton is a design pattern that restricts the instantiation of a class to a single object. We can implement the singleton pattern by making the constructor of the class private, and that's how it was done. It was declared private logger. This is the private constructor. Okay. And providing a static method that returns the instance of the class. This is the static method, public static logger instance. Okay. And this volatile keyword is actually appended to the logger class to make it thread safe and also use a lock so that it gets locked. So if instance equals null in this public static, it is returning a static logger. This instance is of logger type. So what it gets is, if instance equals null, so it is locking this object. Sync root is an object. So if again it is looking for only when the instance is null. Okay. So what is instance? Instance is a logger instance. Instance is a instantiation of the logger class, which is marked static and volatile. Okay, volatile for thread safety purpose. So if instance is equals null, then instance is instantiated as a new logger type. Okay, new logger instance of a new instance of a logger class, and then returns the instance. And in the log method, whatever string is passed, string message as an argument is passed, it writes it on the console, on the command window. So in the program class, so when you are creating an instance of the my class, you can call the do something method, which basically is doing something in my class. So again, recalling, in this example, we have marked the logger class as sealed. Why we have marked it as sealed? To prevent inheritance. We have also made the constructor of the class private to prevent direct instantiation. So you cannot directly instantiate the logger class. Okay. The instance property is declared as public static. Okay. It is declared as public static and returns the single instance of the logger class. This only returns a single instance of the logger class. Now, this volatile keyword is again used for providing thread safety, so that the instance field is always visible to all threads. We also use a lock statement to prevent multiple threads from accessing the instance field at the same time. So what's happening in this example? We obtain a single instance of the logger class using the instance property. We then call the log method to log a message. The output will show the timestamp, but I am not doing this timestamp, so it will just show the message. Logger.instance.log doing something in my class. You could put a timestamp over here very easily. Now the question 4 is about how would you create a custom exception class to handle index out of range exception in C#. So custom exceptions are used to provide meaningful error messages when an error occurs in an application in C#. We can create a custom exception by defining a class that inherits from exception class, exception base class. So let's create another project. So once the project is created, I will come back. So now my custom exception demo project is created. It is also a C# console application like the other 3 projects. Okay. So before anything, let me make it a startup project for this one. Set as startup project because ultimately I'll be testing this. Why not make it in the beginning? So I will get rid of this console.writeLine statement and save it. And then I will create a class, which is custom exception class on this custom exception demo project. So I will add a class, right click, so now my internal class custom exception is created. Now by default, C# 11, because we are working in the latest version of C# 11, so it is marked always internal. So it is up to the developers to change the accessibility. You can create it as a public, but I'm happy with the internal class because we are not going to refer it to outside this solution or so it will be or outside one project. So there is no dependence of one project on the another. So it is happy with the accessibility as internal keyword with the internal keyword. So namespace custom exception demo. Now this internal class custom exception is derived from the exception base exception class. Exception class. Now, if you quickly look into this exception base class, we can find some properties, useful information. So right click and go to definition. This is always a good idea to see what comes from the metadata, from the built-in properties, methods, events, or whatever for a built-in class. An exception is the built-in class. So the metadata information has finally come. So this exception class is actually deriving or implementing the iSerializable interface, and it has got a public constructor, public exception, and 2 more public constructors. One takes an overload. There are 2 overloads of this public constructor. One takes a string message and another takes a string. This is nullable string message and an exception type, inner exception. So we'll be using these 2, okay, rather these 3 overloads of constructors. So let's get back to the custom exception class. Now let's write it. Let's close this metadata information. Okay. So that's it. And let's try this example, run this. So you can see an unhandled exception has come. Custom exception, index 10 is not within range. That is what we actually want. That was the desired outcome. So it has given you the correct answer. Now, if you look into, just slightly reduce the screen. I think it has gone. Anyway, so this is giving the message from here. Index, whatever index, that was index 10, is not within range, and in the exception message. So what is the explanation for this? So in this example, as I have already explained, we have derived a custom exception class from the exception class, and also defined a constructor that takes a message and an inner message. Okay, this one. And from the base class, it inherits from the base class and passes it to the base constructor. Now, in this example, we are trying to access the element at index 10, which is out of range because we have got only 6 elements over there. We catch the index out of range exception and throw out our custom exception, which is this message. With this message that includes the index that was out of range as well as the original exception. Now, this will provide a more meaningful error message to the user. Now, the final question, that is question number 5, is how could you create an extension method to check for a substring within a string in C#? Now, extension methods are a way to add functionality to existing types without having to modify the original code. In C#, we can create an extension method for the string type to check if it contains a substring. So let's go back to the solution and let's add another project, the final project for this question. So, okay, so to the solution, I will add another project. Right click. It is taking a time, so I will come back after creating the console project. So anyway, let us add a new project. I'll name it string extension method demo. Now, after having created the project, I will create another class, add another class. So add class. So I will decorate this class with static keyword. So this will be a static class, internal static. So in a minute, we'll be understanding why it is called static, because we'd not like to, when we call it from the program class, we'd not have to create an instance of this class, string extensions class. And that is the essence. Pretty much, we'll discuss it later. So within this, there is a method that I will be creating, public static method. I was actually helped by the artificial intelligence tool embedded within the Visual Studio, this version of Visual Studio. Oh, that's great. So let's make it a startup project, set as a startup project and run this. So what do you expect? Is a test? Is it a part of this string? It should be true. Okay, so let's see. Wait for the result. So the answer is indeed true. Superb. So we can also test it with another string. Just modify it so that it is not a test and then click on this Control F5. So it is false. Superb. So we have come to the end of our C# session with our host ChatGPT. So it has given us 5 questions with their answers. So for an explanation of the string extensions class, we have defined a new static class, string extensions, that contains an extension method, contains substring. This contains substring method takes 2 parameters, the source string and the substring to search for. It also takes a string comparison parameter to specify the type of comparison to perform. We check for null values. So if the source string is null, it will throw argument null exception. And if the substring is null, then it will also throw argument null exception with the name of substring. Okay. So we check for null values and throw exceptions if either of the parameters is null. The method then uses index of method of the string class to search for the substring and returns true if it is found, as we have seen practically. Now I have already explained how we use the string extension class. Okay, so in this example, we call the contain substring method and the text string with the substring is a test or is not a test, because this is the one that I tested later for a false answer. And if you get rid of not, then this will be a true. As we have seen, we can again check the validity. So this was false, but I need to actually build it anyway. If you just sorry, this is due to this extra space. So this is a test. Now if you hit this Control F5, this is true. Okay, as expected. So we hope that you found this video tutorial on intermediate to senior level C# interview questions and answers informative and engaging. We'd like to thank ChatGPT for its contributions to the creation of the 5 questions and their answers. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comment section in the video below. Thanks for watching. That's pretty much it. So